You're listening to Up1Notch, a podcast where I explore the tech business world. My name is Mohammed On, and I'm a growth accelerator for tech companies looking to scale their businesses. I'm sitting down with software industry leaders, startup founders, and tech experts. Tune in to hear about the latest and greatest from the tech world. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Up1Notch, a podcast where we talk about technology, startups, and business in general. Today, my guest is a very interesting person, Stephen McKean, known most commonly as MacNerd. Hi, Stephen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time out for this podcast. I think we're going to be talking about some really, really interesting stuff around Instagram, NFTs, blockchain for competing and kind of contributing to the cloud technologies and all of that. But let's start off with a bit of introduction. If you can talk a little bit about your background, that's going to kind of really help understand the audience, your journey, and then we can take it forward from there.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So, yeah, my name is Stephen McKean, also known as Mac, short for MacNerd or MacGyver. And I've been taking things apart my whole life, and I kind of made a living out of it for 25 years. I've been doing IT and software, also as an ethical hacker. So I understand, how to do things in a little different way and also how to make things really secure. I just like taking things apart and learning how they work. Been doing it forever. And, fast forward a little bit further, I've been running MacGuyverTech for about 10 years, and we basically just do custom software. But within the last year, I decided to get more in the software space of blockchain, and that was also driven by a love of being in blockchain for over 8 years. I built up a couple mining centers and was burning more than $10,000 electricity costs a month at these places. But what I was mining is everything from Bitcoin to Doge to Litecoin, you name it. If there was an ability to mine it or not, I would probably be involved in it. And I didn't just kind of get these machines and plug them in. I took them apart. I was able to kind of hack them, I guess you would, and get more out of them. And that whole process, I learned a ton. And I just kind of really enjoy what this is. I think this is the next evolution of the internet, and it's a fair, transparent system, which this world could use a little more of that, to be honest. So I just kind of love technology. I'm on a lot of social medias. If you want to follow me on my Twitters or TikToks, you can see the crazy videos I make. I kind of show people how this is. I take these things apart. I make videos. And it's kind of showing people really what this means. And I think it's a good thing for society.
Absolutely. So let's do a bit of like unpacking some of the technical stuff here. So
Sure.
break the NFTs apart and really help us understand what exactly it is and why is it so relevant. And then if you can also, I guess I'm going to jump onto the Instagram question in a moment, but let's talk a little bit about, first of all, about the NFTs, and then we can talk further.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think a lot of people hear the buzzwords NFTs and they don't really understand what that means. I mean, you hear this NFTs, you can hear them selling for tons of money and stuff like that, in auctions, and it really took off in the last year. But really, that technology is a lot more than just selling a cool picture or a piece of artwork that has some intellectual property. NFT actually stands for non-fungible token. What that means is you can't swap it like Bitcoin for one Bitcoin to another. You can't swap that NFT for another. They're not equal. They're actually unique, and that's what makes them non-fungible. So basically, the blockchain allows you to encapsulate anything inside this NFT kind of thing. Think of it as a little box, and it has a little stamp. So as soon as you put whatever it is, a picture, video, maybe your license in the future, or your deed to your home will be an NFT. It gets stamped, and no third party has to go in there and kind of validate that. The blockchain does that for you. And I think it's going to allow for a lot more frictionless kind of things. I mean, everybody dreads going to the DMV and getting their license. Like, this is going to be a lot more faster, and also more, it's going to remove a lot of human error. And I just think, we're just scratching at the surface of what that technology can do. And there's even a lot of large companies, really everything from Coca-Cola to Burger King, are all embracing them. And, it's a really cool thing. And I think you mentioned the Instagram stuff, and there's been some really great news lately, where Instagram is now going to be adopting, blockchain technologies in their Instagram platform for almost having anybody be able to create that.
Right. So with Instagram, how will that really change the overall experience for the users? What new features will it offer?
Sure. Yeah, I think, right now on the surface level, it's going to allow an easier way of creating an NFT. Most people have to be really technical. We're hired, with our MacNerd brand to create NFT projects for people and folks that want to kind of put some intellectual property on the blockchain. But that's a pretty big task. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of coding, and it gets real technical and it could get costly. I think Instagram's approach is really they already have a great platform for people to take images and memories for their family and then share them, but they want to allow you now to go a step further, to have a button and say, hey, maybe I want to create this NFT and sell that to somebody that maybe thinks important or valuable to them, or just share it to them and keep it on the blockchain forever. Because what's cool about the blockchain, once you put it there, it's not going to be taken back. Where, let's say I took a picture and I stored it on an AWS bucket or somewhere out in the web, that could potentially go somewhere. Once it's on the blockchain, it's there for eternity. So it has a lot of staying power. And I think it also allows people to kind of share stuff in other ways they haven't thought of before. So
right. So
I'm excited about it.
I guess that's like they said, it's probably the first. I think it is actually the first time that people will be able to literally own digital assets, right?
Yeah, I think allowing for the mass to be able to do that. Instagram is a very large platform for visual medium, and it's going to now. I think they're really going to make it easier for almost anybody to create those NFTs. Where, like I said, it's been a little bit more work for others. And it's going to really open up the access to this new technology, because it really is a validator and a way to have ownership of intellectual property. And if you think it has some value, you can put it out there and sell it on the open market, which, you don't see anybody selling Instagram photos right now. So this is going to kind of change the whole landscape a little bit for that. So I think it's probably a little bit out a few months out before this kind of takes effect. But they announced, I think earlier this week, or actually late last week, about Instagram is going to embrace the Polygon network, which is a competitor to Ethereum, but also a complementary. They're kind of in a weird space where, if anybody have heard of Ethereum, that's where all the NFTs started. And there's been other blockchains that kind of make it a little bit better, because Ethereum is great in some senses, but it's also really expensive because it's overwhelmed with a lot of users, and the network is expensive to do things, where Polygon is a fraction of that cost, and it's also faster. So I'm happy to see that Meta has adopted Matic, because we built a few projects on that blockchain, and we really enjoy what that can do, and think it's one of the better ones out there.
Right. So talking about a bit about the technical side of things. So how does that really kind of differentiate, or how does, let's say, a platform like Instagram really select which blockchain are they going to go with? So you spoke about Polygon, there's Ethereum and all of those, right? So how do they really differentiate from a technical standpoint? And how does a platform like Instagram and others really decide which one they want to go with?
Right. I mean, that's a great question, because I don't know if you remember, a few years back, Instagram, or the parent company, Facebook, created their own cryptocurrency called the Libra coin. And it's kind of ironic that they didn't use their own project to facilitate the blockchain, projects that they are kind of, taking on with the Instagram application now. So how I kind of think they did it is the same way we went about and picked Polygon as basically the winner for us. Is we looked at a couple metrics: speed, performance, and cost. Those three are really important, because, give an example, like on Ethereum, and I think it's getting a little bit better now. At one point, just to send money from one wallet to another, let's say if I want to send that NFT to my friend and not charge them anything, I might pay $80 to $100 just to send it to them. That's really high, and it's really cost prohibitive for a lot of people. So if I take that same thing and I go on the Matic network, that might be a fraction of a penny. That's realistic and really doable and useful. And also, it's probably a 10x faster than Ethereum, so it's almost instant. And I think in today's day and age, we have to have that feedback much faster. Nobody wants to wait. So, I think those are factors that were really jumped out at me. And the performance, this can handle a lot more throughput and actually have that interactive, like, back and forth, as opposed to click and waiting. And people like click, 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 click. You don't want that kind of thing happening. People get impatient. And I think Ethereum solves that. So it's the cost, the performance, and the usability of it. This makes it easy, and it's really cool. I can take that same thing I put on Polygon and put it on Ethereum. They'll work pretty much the same, but one is costs more and is slower. So I hope that's gives you an idea why we kind of picked Matic for a lot of our projects, due to those kind of things. And the Polygon core team is really putting a lot of effort into making this a really great blockchain. And it's starting to show by attracting companies like Facebook and Meta to use their platform.
Right. So you coming back to the earlier point. So you talked about, like, for example, people will able to buy NFTs, right? So how will the largest population or large masses be able to trade NFTs? Is it going to happen over like trading platforms, like, for example, crypto platforms like Binance? Will there be like separate platforms where you can go and actually buy NFTs and sell your NFTs? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I'll clarify that a little bit. So basically, like Instagram, you can make it on the Polygon network and put it on blockchain. So once it's on the blockchain, that can be bought and sold on any public marketplace. There's, one of the most famous ones is OpenSeas, but they were one of the first ones out there. But now Crypto.com has their own platform. Binance has their own platform. They're all have their own. So it can show up as long as it has access to that network. They will show up and they can be sold or bought on any of those platforms. You're not kind of locked in. Think of them as like an eBay and have a product, but then there's a competitor like Craigslist or something like that. You can bought that same product on both of them. Which one sells first is which one's going to go for it. So it's basically listing it on the public blockchain. You can sell it anywhere. There's no limitations. You don't have to use X, Y, and Z marketplace to buy and sell, but it does give you a lot of flexibility. And I think it really kind of opens up a whole different market, really. And that's kind of a newer way of thinking about it, where people think, oh, well, I have to go here to buy this thing, but I can't go here. But that same thing could be now offered in both of those. And whichever one's sold on one will win. And then they take ownership of that immediately. And it's transferred over to them. And the other one that's listed no longer can list it because it's already been moved.
Right,
So I
right.
hope that helps.
So let's also talk about these marketplaces from the perspective of how do they really differentiate. So we've seen platforms like, for example, Coinbase. There's Crypto.com. There's Binance. How do they really differentiate in terms of what they have to offer to the end user?
Well, each of them have their own different kind of focuses. Coinbase, that was one of the early adopters, and they just really kind of try to start it as a trading platform to make it, try to easy enough for people to get in to buy some crypto. They had maybe a limited selection of what they can buy and sell. And something like Binance will be a little bit more aggressive at finding newer things that are out there that you might not find on Coinbase for a little while. And if anybody's been in crypto and trading for a while, they usually, the rule of thumb is try to get in earlier than later. So the fact that, you have to wait till it gets on a Coinbase, you probably already take a hit and lose something if you're kind of going from the investment side from cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about also so I'm hearing that basically blockchain. I mean, you spoke about the cloud technology, you spoke about the speed and performance and cost elements, which brings me to my next question about, like, for example, the cloud side. How is it going to be impacted by blockchain? I'm hearing that there's some stuff happening which is going to kind of, I guess, in layman's terminology, allow us to leverage like a decentralized cloud technology, if that's the right way to put it. But what exactly is happening in terms of cloud leveraging the blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing, because I'm sure most people have heard of what AWS, and that's, an acronym for Amazon Web Services. And I've been using that since they've been started, maybe 20 years now. And now there's a lot of competitors like Azure, and you have Google Compute now, and there's might be one or two others that's in there. But the difference is, if you kind of compare them to some of these blockchain projects that are coming up, as somebody who has to use these services on a regular basis, that could be very costly month over month. And it doesn't matter if I'm using that server or not, from like reading and writing data into it, I still have to pay the same bill every month. But if you kind of switch it around now, some of these new projects, one in particular is called Flux, and I've been mining this for a while. And what it allows is it's a distributed version of like AWS. So think of it, you can basically buy and rent these servers, but instead of it using more cash, using crypto to buy them. And what's unique about this kind of model is you're only paying to write the data. You're not paying to read the data. So that really is going to change the paradigm of how that businesses are ran and how money is made for these larger companies, where, AWS is incentivized by profit, where Flux is only incentivized enough to basically make it run. So the cost of running these things are much lower. And also you're only writing that data and paying for the writes. You're not paying for the reads. So, that's going to really save a big deal for companies in the future for when they need to have data out there, but don't want to store the server. And once it's on the blockchain, that data is there forever, and you can retrieve it at will at no cost. And I think that's going to really be a cost benefit to companies that adopt that technology sooner than later.
So there's basically lower cost and better security as well, correct?
Oh
Because
yeah, I mean the security level. I mean with these blockchains. I mean what's interesting, between a Web 2.0 kind of approach and a Web 3.0 approach, and I've been in long enough in both of them. The Web 2 approach is you have to basically put the security at the application level, and you have to put all the stuff in, convert like SSL certificates and stuff. But on the blockchain, it's at the network level. It's at the lowest level of the communication. So the communication is encrypted along with the data. So basically it's baked into it at much lower level than you would when you're dealing with an application that has to kind of basically bootstrap security on after effect. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound where instead of that, you're going surgically into it and solving the problem at the root cause. And, it's kind of a different approach, but these are also decentralized, meaning that the profits aren't going to the top anymore. They're meant to be just make the network run, which, it's going to be a big cost savings as well.
absolutely, I think that's very interesting stuff happening. Like these things are getting better and better. What about the performance standards? So we spoke about the security element of it, the cloud based on blockchains. Obviously, it's more secure. The cost is lower because you don't pay for the read side; you only pay for the write side. What are the performance standpoint? Like, how will it be impacted from a technical standpoint? Let's say on a blockchain, is that more faster? Is that slower?
Well, I mean, in a broad sense, it's hard to kind of put a pin on that. But if you kind of take a look at like starting with where this all started with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is probably one of the most secure systems that out there in the blockchain thing, but they sacrifice speed for security. So there's like a triangle you could take from speed, security, and performance, and you can have two or three, but not all three. You can move closer to one or other. So Bitcoin chose to be more secure. It's really rock solid from a network standpoint, but it's slow. It gets like 20 transactions per second. So that is really slow for a world that we live in now. And you don't want to be at the store using Bitcoin and waiting to confirm your groceries that you're buying. So that is a big problem. So Bitcoin kind of, is not really something you want to use in a practical term, except for maybe like the Lightning Network, which kind of causes a whole different wrinkle. But now there's tens of thousands of blockchains that all have different purposes, and they all have different, they're kind of taking away from maybe the security side and moving a little bit more speed and kind of making it easier and faster, like Polygon is one of them where it is sufficient enough to use in that kind of manner. And it's also fairly inexpensive. I think a Matic's like $1. So, it's easy enough to kind of get them. It's also inexpensive and it's fast. And, there's all different ones. But I think from that standpoint, it offers a lot of, stuff to build on top of. And these are things you can build things with. That's what I'm excited about. Like, Bitcoin was this money. But Ethereum and Matic is basically like, here's a toolbox of all these different things. You can build your little toy from it or build your application on top of the blockchain. And now they're getting enough throughput where they can actually be viable into an application in today's day and age. It's acceptable from a speed standpoint.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's they're very, very innovative technologies coming up, and really looking forward to all of these things getting more and more evolved for better experience for the end users. So thank you so much, Stephen, for taking the time for this episode. It was really helpful in understanding these technical terms and how are they going to impact the industry moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You do.